Hey everyone, how are we? Another audiobook review, a bit of sci-fi again. This one's the Expanse series. It's quite a large series of sci-fi books by James S.A. Corey, which is actually a pen name for two authors. They write these books together, and it's quite interesting how they go about that. But it's narrated by Jefferson Mays. All the books so far have been narrated by him, and he does a really good job. He's quite subtle in his voice acting, but it's good enough that you can tell which character is which without actually needing any attribution to know who's talking. And he's quite good with a lot of the accents. There's so humanity's sort of set a few hundred years into the future, and it's quite gritty and realistic, these books, to a point, especially the first one where things are just starting to kick off. And so humanity's sort of split into three factions now. They've colonised the solar system effectively, and it's gone from being about countries to being about planets. So you've got the inner Earth planets, so you've got the inner planets, so you've got Earth and Mars, Mars has been colonised, and they're in the process of terraforming that. And then you've got the section of people they call the Belters, who live in the outer planets, and they've colonised like space stations and asteroids and the moons of Jupiter and things like that. And it's quite interesting how they've developed the differences between these three factions that echo what goes on, well, it's always gone on with humanity. There's always a separation of cultures and things. So the Belters have evolved to live in space more or less because they've grown up in zero G, so that's had a huge effect on their bodies. So they've become tall and skinny and quite weak boned, but very well adapted to living in space and everything that entails. And the science behind it all is quite realistic as far as I can tell. Like, sometimes these sci-fi movies, they hit light speed and warp speed and whatever else, there's no effect. Well, here it's acceleration's a thing. G-force is a thing. People die when they accelerate for too long, and it's really, really clever the way they've made it realistic and gritty, then added a sort of a alien element to things, which becomes more apparent in later books. But there's great storylines. There's a lot going on, and it's almost like a Game of Thrones set in space. Not quite as many characters and whatever else, but it definitely has that feel to it, that there's a lot going on, a lot of subplots and things like that. The main characters, it sort of mostly follows the crew of what becomes the crew of the Rocinante spaceship. Four main characters there, and we get to follow these characters as they develop, and some really, really great side characters too. I think my favourite one is Christian Avanti. She's basically a little Indian woman, almost the head of the UN, and quite foul-mouthed and just direct, and just really great character. So it's the first book, Leviathan Awakes, I think it's called. They've basically discovered this thing, and they don't know where it came from, but it's a race to try and work out where it came from and what it's actually doing and who's controlling it. And then from there, as the plot develops, each book carries on, and it effectively ends up leading to major space exploration by humans. So it's very clever and very detailed, and at the same time there's some very good character studies in there too. So I'm up to about book 5 at the moment. I think I finished book 5 the other day, but there's also little like novellas that are sort of wedged in between the main books, and I don't think you actually have to listen to them in order, but they sort of give a bit more backstory, and maybe because some of the books jump 2 or 3 years, and I think these novellas sort of fill in the gaps a little bit. But they're certainly worth a listen. They're quite long, about 20 hours each, most of them. And if you like a bit of sci-fi, and if you like a bit of gritty realism in your sci-fi, like there's people, like as I said, I think there's one scene that a ship it's travelling at 600 metres per second, and it's brought to a sudden halt, so basically everyone inside becomes strawberry jam. That sort of thing, it's like I say, you don't often see that in space movies or other books that I've read anyway. The Expanse series, well worth a look, and will keep you busy for a while. Hope you like that one.